Oh yeah, it's Xavier, and today is another Bonsai Basics video. You want to go out collecting, you want to be warm, you want to know what tree you're going to get, but better of all, you want some expert advice.
So you want advice from me on how to dig Yamadori? You know what happens when I dig trees, right?
So, just make sure you're rugged up, you've had a cup of coffee, and you have been to the bathroom. Well, it's early in the morning and it's cold. I've got my dig planned, it's all sorted out, and I've got my bag, but I've been rooting around in that shed and it's yellow. What do I need? You've given me sunshine, you've given me rain, looks like you're not happy, lest I open a vein. Anyone tell me what that's from? Can't believe I just did that. Yeah, okay.
Right, you want to go collecting trees. What do you need? One of these would be very useful. Get a spade with a nice sharp edge. If you get a blunt one, it's not going to work. Next to this, I always carry one of my trusted loppers.
Branch cutter. Do I need something smaller? Yep. This should do the job.
Now, of course, these loppers can only work on small branches. Bring one of those. Get an old one with an old blade so that also you can cut down the roots.
Got my old rusty blade, very old, so it should do the job, and that'll be for reducing branches and stuff like that.
And I know, Xavier, we're almost equally old, but you're a little bit older than me. Bring these. Protect your knees.
Okay, yeah, cheeky. I've got my knee thing.
Next to this, what you will need, you'll need tape and foil, so that once you lift the tree from a hole, you can put it on the foil, wrap it around the root ball, and tape the whole thing up.
Yeah, it's got all the properties, everything you need. Certainly with some of the tougher things we're trying to wrap around it and keep, because we're trying to keep the moisture in, aren't we? Let's just show you exactly how it works. I'm sure there'll be something that will get this stuff wrapped around. I know. Spot on, Yelly. Without you, my sandwich would have gone all dry.
Make sure you bring bottles of water. No, not for you to drink for yourself. You bring your gin or your gin tonic, whatever you Brits drink.
Gin. Yep, you're definitely right. You can't beat us. Us English do like the gin. Cheers.
No, it is for the tree. The roots dry out very, very rapidly. So when you lift it from the ground, you put it on the foil. Before you wrap it, you moisten it. If you have sphagnum moss, and I know you do, you use it a lot. I think you actually take cuttings with it.
Of course. Let's pack those roots up. What else do I need? I can't think. There must be something I need. I'm sure if I dig about, I'll work out what it is. This. I bought this 3 years ago. I've never used it. And today, I'm hoping to use it for digging around the roots and seeing what's going on. Do you know what? With that, I think I've got all the things I need to dig. Oh, shovel. But that's already in the boot of the car. So, let's go, shall we? Now when you're collecting, obviously you've got to look a good sight. Lots of hawthorn here, obviously a bit of background noise, but the key thing is to always make sure you're allowed to do it. Fences, they're there for a reason, but I'm sure it's going to be alright, so I'm just going to go and collect some trees. Cheers! This is site 2. I know, tongue in cheek for the last one. But really, when you're looking for a suitable site, you want it to have a lot of trees about, but you also want it to have the sort of material you want. But what sort of material is that? I wish Yelly was here with me. I'm sure he could tell me exactly the sort of material I needed to be looking for.
Basically, when you go out and you want to collect that tree, you have to look at a few characteristics. First of all, the species of tree. Is it a species that is commonly used for bonsai or considered to be suitable for bonsai? This is a mulberry, and mulberries are used for bonsai, but you need quite a big trunk. Otherwise, the leaves, they don't get all that small, they're quite coarse in their growth, and it will just not look right. Fortunately, that's the second selection criteria. You look at the trunk, clean away all the weeds and the debris around it, and then you see whether the trunk is actually nice and thick. It doesn't make a lot of sense to go collecting Yamadoris that are only very thin unless they're really aged. And that's the third criteria to look for. If you look at the trunk, does it already look aged? Because if you just get a young tree, why not just get a young tree? In fact, Yamadori, by its definition, is an old tree. This is actually a garden dory. This is not on the mountain, it's just an old trunk in my garden. Where were we? 3? 4? I really must be getting old. Fourth criterion. Is the trunk interesting? Here actually, no, not really. Yes, there's a nice branch here, there's nice branches there. But if you look at this trunk, the first half a meter or so, it is just a stovepipe. It is straight, there's no taper, there's no movement, there is nothing that tells me this is going to be a great bonsai. So we'll leave this in the ground for now.
Yeah, that's the sound of a motorway beside me, by the way. Having established what it is I'm looking for, now we need to have a look, but we do need to do a few things first. I've got my bag of tricks, with special tools, and all things that any good Yamidorist will need. But I'll be back to you in a moment. The key is that no one can see who you are. Wire cutters are more than just bonsai. They're also for getting through those pesky little fences that we hate most. And now all I need to do is find a tree. Cheers. We look at these, it's amazing what you find in these trees and that, in these little forest locations. Very dark here, but there's a lovely little hazel there, which I may well have a look at. But gosh, so beautiful out in the country here. There's not a soul to be seen. Absolutely wonderful. Anyway, now obviously when you get yourself into the wilds of the forest, you've got to watch out for wild animals. Snakes, there's all sorts of things that could cause you harm and danger. Always watch out for the twigs. But the key about these private areas is you want to have a look at the tree that you're looking at here, making sure that there aren't badgers, anything else that may be using this, maybe birds nesting in there. But then when you're satisfied this is the tree you want, you mark out the area, and we all know how long that area is, and then we start digging. So let's get to it, shall we?
What are you doing in my garden? Get out of here! Get out! Get out!
You just go for it.
What are you doing in my garden?
Xavier, if you go out and you go collect a tree, make sure you have permission and make sure they're not hunting in the region. You don't want to be hit by a bullet from an angry landowner or somebody who thinks you're a deer, now do you?
No, I've got a better idea. If it's not Garden Dory or Urban Dory, then there is another place, and I think you've all heard me talk about it, Averland Nurseries. I'm going to pay them a visit now. So let's go, shall we? So I finally got myself up to Averland Trees and had a chat to Hugh. I've just taken on a whole load more fields and got in some more seed beds and everything. And now I've just got to work my way up, have a look and see if there's anything that's worth looking at. We'll have a look, but what we've got there, we've got some ash there. But even there, we have a look. We've got nice big bases on there, so I'm going to have a look. Look at that one. That could be particularly interesting. And see what we can do. So some hornbeams here, and these are all, they're pretty good thickness, and for a beginner, this is just what you really want. So I'll have a look through there and we see it better from there. But if you look here, potentially on that one, you've got that division early on, so that could be interesting. Up here, if you look at that one there, you've got some these here, which could be the new leaders. So cutting it here, which is what I might do. So I might take that one, hornbeam, and there's there's a whole load more up there, and it's funny, from the road they look quite small. When you get up close, you've definitely got some trunks to look at. Anyway, I've picked the two big trees I'm going to grab. Let's get to it. So I've got my tree. I like the look of this. This is an elm. It's got a lovely bit of bark on it, but what am I supposed to do with all these branches? I mean, which branches do I take? Which do I cut? I've got my loppers, but honestly, I don't know. Jelly, can you help me with this?
Well, how much you need to cut off from branches, it really depends. You can actually do a major prune, but always leave a large part. So leave longer branches than you think you'll need, because there will be a bit of dieback. I usually just cut it to size that it fits in my car, and then I plant it up, and in springtime I'll look at the real pruning back.
I mean, I could make a brilliant bonsai. I could wire this, and with wiring, you know, I like to rotate and then bend, so these could be wired down. I mean, they're lovely branches. I know that's a bit of an issue, but surely it's not too big an issue. Yeah, you don't know what you're talking about, Jelly. Let's do this the Zav way. Yeah, like it.
And how far away from the trunk should you go with your spades, so that you make sure that you still get the roots? Now I can of course go here, and that makes a very nice light small root ball to take home. But what we don't know is whether these roots, they might be very long and only have side roots here. In fact, the general advice is to take about 2/3 of the crown diameter and then go to the ground, and that's where you start digging. You first start digging a small circle around it, then about a spade width wider you make another cut. What you can do, 2 cuts. And now I can lift this section out. Look at that. You do this all around the root ball. Yes, that is a lot of work, and yes, this root ball will get really, really heavy, but look at the tree. This is a mulberry. They root really, really, really easily. Here I would just go half that distance. But yeah, this is the minimum that I need to keep. So, one of the items to bring, 2 young, strong friends. This tree, you're never gonna collect alone. Or if you do, you're gonna shake off all the soil and you come home without the soil on it.
You talked about a crown. Now, call me stupid, but the only crown I know of is a series on Netflix. You can't be talking about that, surely. So, the crown is this bit at the top. That's the apex of the tree, is it? It's all that bit. Okay, so my crown on this is about, I don't know, 4 foot. So you're saying I'd have to come back 4 foot and dig a trench around it? That seems like a lot of hard work, Jelly, you know, a lot of hard work. But if I just get my shovel in there and see what happens. Could it be different for different trees? I mean, these move water really fast, these elms, and maples do, don't they? Couldn't I take less roots then? What's your view on that?
Each tree species is slightly different. Some species you can just cut off most of the roots. Like Japanese maple, you can make quite a small root ball. They'll, when done in the right season, create new roots, start growing again. But if you do this with a pine, chances are you're going to lose the tree. So it requires a little bit more information. Just, hey Jelle, I want to go out and dig a tree. Can you give me some advice?
And because I know I'm going to be cutting a lot of these roots off, it doesn't matter that I slice through here. I just want enough of a root ball that I can lift the tree. So, in terms of how I'm going to move this, I'm lucky. I've only got to drive half an hour at most home. So I could get away with just putting this in a bag and get back and then deal with it when I get back, and it would probably be fine. Otherwise, if I had a journey that was a bit longer, I would get my sphagnum moss, and first of all I get a nice sort of, some sort of material like this. I don't know, Jelle, you talked about tin foil and stuff like that, and that's good, but oh, I'm puffing like an old one, aren't I? That's good enough for me. What I would do is I would pack it sphagnum moss, keep these roots thing, but I know I'm going to be cutting back a lot higher, so I'm not bothered about those. And then drop it in a bag. Make sure you've got bottles of water. It's not an issue today, but what you don't want is all the clock drying out too much. So, you know, in response to that question, how much root do you take? If you haven't got far to go, you take as little as you possibly can, because you're going to be removing it all when you get home. I've actually got some sphagnum moss in the car. I'll pack all that around there when I get back there, but for transporting for now, that's fine. And now I've got to decide what I want. And truthfully, I don't want anything above here. This is a 12-foot tree. I only want this bit here. I'll take a little bit up here. Okay. This, I don't know. Oh, it's the phone telling me it's prayer time. I've already been here an hour. Okay, so that's my elm recovered. As I say, when I get to the van, I'll fill that with sphagnum moss, and that'll be worked on in a few hours when I get home. That's that one. Now this, Yeli and I have got a little experiment we're doing. After my lovely success on the Trident maple cuttings, I've challenged him to doing some winter hardwood cuttings. Now, I've had absolutely no success with those, but English elm, that's going to be one of my subjects. I'll take this back with me, and I'm going to do some hardwood cuttings on those. That's that. I'm going to dig up some more trees. I don't need to show you that. It's exactly the same process. In fact, that's the hardest one. For a lot of these, I'm literally going to be able to shovel and lift, and then take them back as is. Whenever you go to a dig site, and although this isn't actually a nursery, you still make good your damage. And certainly if you've got permission in the woods or the wild, then you don't want to have potholes and everything everywhere around for people to fall down. So that's the tree I've recovered. And do you know what? As a learner, I did this for the first time 3 years ago and did nothing different. And I challenge you. Maybe a bit late now because the frost is coming over, but you know what? Early spring, before the buds swell, either find yourself a local field-grown nursery stockist, or you speak to the your Heritage Woods Association or whatever, and ask them if you can dig some trees. So I think I'm going to take that heavy Thor-sized weight back home with me. Take another few trees as well, but from Avalan Nursery, I'll say thanks for all your advice, Yele, and hopefully this has inspired new bonsaiists to get out there and find some trees to dig up. And just to show you what else is actually here, if you're looking to buy lots of little different examples, certainly in the spring, you've got, you know, wild cherry, birch, oak, aspen, field maples, all sorts. These are at your sort of young sapling stages. Then we come into some of the nicer stuff. We've got some holly, oaks, looks like some cedars there, bigger oaks. Looks like we've got here. Looks like we've got some Scots pines. Looks like some Scots pines there. Another holly, hornbeam, beech, and there's a lot of yew over there. So if you're looking at moving forward with yews, certainly stuff to go from there. Still quite small, slightly older yew there, but they've still got, the good thing about there is you've still got flexibility in those. So if you're into yews, you know what to use. Yeah, so there's always a lot here at Aberland. I've never been disappointed. I've only taken 4 trees, and I'm sure in areas around you there's going to be similar sort of nurseries that you can use, and also have the fun of digging stuff up. Anyway, let's try and get some of this stuff back. So, also recovered this hornbeam. Quite good roots. There's a nice twin on there. So we'll see what we can do with that. But the way I'll deal with this now, got some sphagnum moss. And all I'll do is wrap the sphagnum moss in the root ball. The ends here, for the save of money, Vaseline jelly on the top. That'll seal those off nicely. And so just pack sphagnum moss around me for now. Again, thanks to Ryan for the sphagnum. That's now firmly packed with sphagnum, and this should be okay. Get me home, get me have a lunch, bit of a rest, and then work on them this afternoon. So I've got that one. I retrieved two of the elms. The bark was a lot more rugged and pitted and really attractive, so I went for that one as well. And then there was another hornbeam, which just had a base there that looked like it could be quite interesting, with a lot of potential there, so see how that goes. But just the 4 today. And I suppose just to reiterate, you know, what the degree of care you take, whether you use cling film, sphagnum moss, you use hessian. I mean, I've got rags around them. Yeah, they talks about tin foil. I'd be a lot of tin foil, I'll tell you that right now, and I've done tin foil once and it just keeps ripping and shredding. But you know, if you've got the bundle up nice and tight, then the tin foil goes over the top and provides that protection. If you were hiking in off the hills, then you definitely want to give it. But as I say, I've got a half-hour journey back home, more than enough time to sort those out and get them into some decent soil, and then bedded down for the winter. Yeah, they'll be in the greenhouse. Well, I mean, obviously I'm going to go back now and sort these trees out, but it probably seemed to be a bit of a rush, and truthfully this year it was a rush. The frosts came a lot quicker than I thought they would, and there really wasn't a lot of planning. I just came out here, found some trees, dug them up and went. But I suppose that begs the question, you know, is this the way it's always going to be? Just a chaotic rush to grab your trees with no real design or planning, or is there another way to do it? I suppose, Jelly, you got any thoughts on that one?
Best approach is you go out, you find yourself a tree, you mark where it is, you go home, and then in the right season you go and collect.
And I know when I have been walking on the in the forest trails and stuff like that, you see oaks or all sorts of native trees, little small ones, and you know, say you've got permission but they're not quite ready. I mean, do you have to dig them out straight away?
You can also do the root work, leave the plant in place, wait for a season, come back, and then normally there's a lot more roots on the inside of that root ball, and then you can more easily collect it. I'm lazy though. I just go, lift it, plant it up. But it also means that sometimes my trees die. Personally,
I'd be a bit worried that if I left it there for another year, some blighter's going to come along and nick it from under my nose. That's what I wouldn't like, especially if I spend a bit of time wiring it and shaping it while it's still in the ground. Get some other herb that comes along and says, oh, nice little bonsai there, and grabs it. So yeah, I think it's difficult in England certainly, where it's a lot harder to be collecting in the wild. That issue doesn't come up. But yeah, I suppose that's something to consider, isn't it? Last question that maybe as a beginner I'd like answered: is it the same approach for all trees?
Not really one answer to the question. It very much depends, of course, on the species and where this plant is growing. This one came from Sweden, and they actually didn't have to dig at all. They just go in there, and it's in marshland, and they just start using their hands, scraping the roots together, and they can just lift these all without a root ball. They wrap them up in sphagnum moss, put them at home in, what is it, lava, bims, akadama, plant it up, done.
Just a final bit of advice: good shovel. Always get a good shovel. We need something you can feel solid that isn't going to do that. Jelly, you never told me I needed to get a second shovel. So from Xavier, having had a really good day digging with the sun, I've got some stuff potted up there. I hope you've taken something from this as part of your bonsai basics, and don't be afraid, get out there, do some digging, make sure you got permission, and enjoy what you get from it. So from Xavier at Avalon Nurseries, with the sun shining to his eyes, I'll say cheers, God bless, happy bonsai, and never forget your second shovel. Oh, Jelly, thanks ever so much for all your help and advice. I know I might have taken the rag a bit, but I think it's really useful, so thanks a lot for that. Cheers.
So, does this help you? Do you think you can go out and collect some trees? I hope you have a good fireplace, my friend.